And thanks for watching Morning Live. Now, following last week's announcement by the South African Social Security Agency asking for rejected applicants to appeal for the 350 Rand grant, many have wondered what will happen once the national state of disaster ends. We've had calls for a basic income grant amid a dire economic situation that has been further worsened by the coronavirus pandemic. But what's the way forward for those who depend on grants? The Minister of Social Development, Lindiwe Zulu, joins us now to discuss this further. Minister, good morning and welcome once more to Morning Live.
Very good morning to you. Good to be back with you again. I hope everything is going fine on your side. On our side, it's tough, but it will be okay.
I was going to say, I suspect it's worse on your side than on ours, Minister. But just getting straight into it, SASSA has urged people to send through their appeals after experiencing an increased number of rejected applications for the 350 Rand COVID-19 grant. Now, SASSA has also said that there may have been people applying who are already on more than one grant or database. Please talk to us more about the appeals processes and why were so many people rejected and what has been done since, Minister?
Yes, firstly, we didn't even have the system of the appeals, so we had to immediately set up that system because remember that the 350 is but one of a broader grants process, which is the 350 was specifically for those who are unemployed. But I do want to remind you, Sakina, the fact that it's not just the 350 that we've been working on. It's all the other grants and the increases that were made in the other grants. So when those that had to apply for the 350, we realized that there was a lot of rejections. We then needed to develop a system outside of SASSA in the Department of Social Development itself so that we can check why people were being rejected. This must not also be looked from a context that to apply for the 350, you had to comply and make sure that you are not on any other social grant. It was through the realization that even some of the people who were on other social grants started applying. Hence, we had to put a system that was not going to put us into trouble with the Auditor General. For instance, as you are aware, it has been found that about 30,000 people who were not supposed to have received the social grants received the social grants. But at the same time, if you look at the 30,000 as against the 5 million that have been paid, you then realize that at least your system was able to protect many people. Those who were rejected have a process which we put in place for them to come back again. And again, we have to make sure that even when they are rejected and they come back, they appeal. We have to make sure that we're paying the right people. And I've repeated this over and over, Sakina, right from the beginning of May, that we are pleading with our communities. We understand and appreciate the dire situation that people are finding themselves in. But when all is said and done, the 350 was meant specifically for people who were unemployed.
So, Minister, with regard to the appeals process, how effective has this been dealt with from your side as SASSA? Because, as you say, we've spoken about all these factors before. We've heard what are some of the reasons why people have been rejected. But we've also continuously heard from people who have applied saying that they are told that they are on a SARS or a UIF or some other database, and they actually haven't worked for years. So how effective has that process been on SASSA's side?
Remember, I'm saying to you that the appeals is not with SASSA. The appeals is with the department. It is the department that created that system to make sure that that is done. Because we need to split the responsibilities in such a way that we're able to cope. Understanding and appreciating that SASSA had to go through a lot of difficulties itself from the applications, processing those applications, making those payments, developing a completely different system from the normal system that we use. So as I say to you, that appeals is not with SASSA, it is with my department. And my department really has done the best that it can, but not adequate, not enough. because this was a completely new set of work that needed to be done. We needed to make sure that we've got more people that can be able to work on it. Here's what I'm saying moving forward. This is the time for us to use technology much more in our systems. And if you see what happened in the applications by over more than 10 million people that applied, and those applications were processed without anybody going into any office. So it does show that we need to use technology. We did not have the technology, for instance, so dealing with the appeals. And so dealing with the appeals is also very manual. And that's a very difficult process. Worst of all, under normal circumstances, we would have had people in the offices doing that. That is not happening because it will happen now that we are on level 1 and people are returning to the offices. So we think that we're going to be able to fast track that. But remember that before level 1, people could not go into their offices, and so we needed to use technology again to process those appeals. Let me also say to you, Sakina, those appeals that have been processed, if people have been processed and found really to deserve, they will get their money, because as SASSA is completing now in October, as announced by the president, that it will be from May until October, those who are found to have been deserving, they will still be paid. They won't be lost. But obviously the pain is the fact that they should have received the money much earlier than that, and we're not able to do that because we needed to make sure that we pay the right people.
And let me appreciate you admitting to the shortcomings and the inadequacies, Minister, and equally admitting to the pain and the frustration that those who are deserving of these grants are going through. But what's the way forward now post the national state of disaster? Because this was meant to run for 6 months. Will people still receive the monies that they had been told that they would get? Because there are people who received a payment once and they have struggled ever since, or twice, or people are in limbo right now. They don't know what to do.
Well, let me assure you and assure the public and assure the people who made applications who it comes out that they actually do deserve to receive that money. They will still receive that money, even if the grant is ending on now in October. Those that deserve to be paid are still going to be paid, because we budgeted for that, and we agreed that we will extend on the basis of payment of those that had applied. So nobody must apply now and think that they're going to be paid thereafter. Everyone that is in the system that had been rejected, and it comes out that through the processes of processing them, they will be paid. They still will be paid.
So, Minister, the national state of disaster as it stands right now will end on the 15th of October, which is, of course, next Thursday. What is the way forward with regard to social grant payments? I know on a previous occasion we spoke about the possibility of a basic income grant, and that there were discussions around that particular matter. I understand now that that won't happen this year, but how far are those discussions?
Those discussions have gone quite far, because remember that this is a policy issue. So as I indicated the previous time, we took it to the African National Congress as the governing party to say we are looking at a better support and sustainable support moving towards it in the future. And remember that I did indicate that the ANC, the National Executive Committee, welcomed the old report, the Taylor report that had been there. And we had now called upon Taylor herself, who had been part and parcel of this. We had called her back into conversation. We have now formed a team of people and experts in the area, and Professor Taylor herself is leading that group of people of experts. But let me also say that while we are doing that, it is also appreciated of the challenges, the financial challenges that South Africa faces, the budgetary constraints that South Africa faces. But when all is said and done, Sakina, with those budget constraints, we still do believe that South Africa has a capacity just being creative and working and finding better solutions, we do have an opportunity to look. We will await the work of that team, and I'm hoping that the team is not going to take long. They've had their first and second meeting already with iChad. There is a strong belief and a strong support for the basic income grant, but there are due processes that need to be taken through, and it's got to be a policy that is accepted and a policy that we think we can be able to implement. And specifically with that basic income grant, it's going to be looking at people between the ages of 18 and 59, people who usually find themselves falling within the cracks, people who can't even have money to buy the airtime to look for jobs or to get into a cab to go and look for work somewhere, or to even start their small little business in somewhere where they live. So I'm excited about this, but I know that it's not going to be an easy road, mainly because our financial constraints. As a principle and as a policy, I think everyone is agreed upon it. The issue is the how and who, and then, of course, the biggest challenge is where will we be able to get the money for that, considering the financial challenges that we're facing as a nation.
Any indications? Because the last time you were still going to think about it, Minister, we're talking about around 33 million South Africans. And if we look at what Statistics South Africa say, they say that if you look at the South Africa's poverty line, including non-food expenses, that's calculated at 1,270 Rand. So if you do the calculation for 33 million South Africans, that would come to around 42 billion Rand. That's no pocket change in an economy that is totally distressed, in a recession, as it were. Where are we going to get the money from?
Look, as I say, Sakina, it's a question of us looking at it from a creative point of view, because we mustn't be narrow about it and only think that we cannot necessarily be able to have the money. The figure that you're throwing in there could be less, could be plus. I think that what we need to agree as South Africans, not only just government, because this issue that we are dealing with, it's not just an issue for government. It is an issue for NGOs, for NPOs. It is an issue for communities to say, do we rather have people going hungry, or do we rather look for the money and make sure that we lift South Africans out of poverty? We give them an opportunity to make lives for themselves. Because again, for me, I keep insisting on this, that yes, we are social development, but when all is said and done, our people that we support through our services and social development, we are very much dependent on a whole lot of other things that have to be done by government. So when we look at the basic income grant, it must not be looked at purely from a perspective of the Department of Social Development. It must be looked at where all government departments are interested. The whole government of the African National Congress is interested in looking at ways and means where nobody must go hungry. And so the building and the growth of the economy is of importance to us as the Department of Social Development. The recent announcements by the President of the Recovery Plan is of importance to us, because if that can work, it would mean that more people are going to get jobs. You'll have less people being dependent on social grants. Even the 350 itself, it's something that we are thinking of. We've already made our presentation to say we're requesting to see if it couldn't have been extended until the end of the financial year, because even research that has recently been done is showing that this 350 has had an impact. Now, if 350 has had an impact on the lives of people who have absolutely nothing, try and imagine what would happen if the basic income grant was to be implemented. It would mean that a whole lot of people that you are talking about who are really down there will be assisted to lift themselves up. When we talk about the basic income grant or the 350 itself, we talk about finances that are supposed to empower people, not only just for consumption, because when you put that amount of money into the public, that again is boosting the economy of South Africa, because the financial muscle for people to be able to go and buy Hence, we are saying also as a department, even the 350, we're looking at where was it spent. If you talk about the basic income grant, can we talk to the Department of Small Business Development? Can we talk to other departments to say, let's make sure that if that does happen, the money is circulated within our communities, because putting any penny into a hand of anybody, it goes back into the economy.
Minister, just a quick one. We are out of time, but you speak about people not going hungry, and yet you and your MECs have been hauled before the courts for withholding subsidies from early childhood development centres, which means that many children have gone hungry. And in some parts of the country, the allegation is that those subsidies have not been paid since the beginning of the year, and they are meant to actually feed poor and vulnerable children. What's your comment on this?
Those subsidies, Sakina, has been paid not from the beginning of the year. The only time that we had the challenges was when we went on lockdown. That was the time that that money was not paid. And by the way, it's not in all provinces that this money was not being paid. I'm not justifying for those that have not paid. I am aware of the provinces that have not paid, and I'm working with the provinces, particularly the Eastern Cape, and you've just mentioned the issue of the court case. It's very unfortunate, obviously, that citizens have to go to that length of going to courts and all. But the appreciation and understanding should be that on our side, we sometimes also get constrained by systems that we ourselves have to put in place to make sure that money is again paid to the right ECDs, paid to the right people. And so I'm doing my best really, because this is not, the money is not sitting at national level. This is the money that gets distributed equitably to the provinces. And as you are aware, some of the provinces from a systems point of view are not the same. And therefore, that's why I'm saying it's important for us to make sure that we create systems that are going to respond as quickly as possible to our people. I'm not happy with those that have not been paid, but I'm doing my best from a point of view of being the national minister and trying to hold those MECs where this has not been done accountable to make sure that we pay those ECDs that need to be paid. And by the way, let me also say to you that this area of ECDs is very, very difficult, because some ECDs are registered, some ECDs are not registered, and accordingly, we are supposed to pay those ECDs that have been registered. Hence, we started a program of even assisting the ECDs through the Vangasali program to make sure that they are properly registered, because again, this is taxpayers' money. We will be held accountable by the Auditor General for not paying the right ECDs. But I really promise that in the best way that we can, we will be able to deal with that backlog, because it's not from the beginning of the year. It's only from the beginning of the time that there was the lockdown that we had these challenges.
Minister, we have to leave it there. But from what I was reading, it seems as though a province like the Eastern Cape may have not paid even before the lockdown started. But we'll have to park that conversation for now. Thank you so much to the Minister of Social Development, Lindiwe Zulu, talking to us about grant payments post the national state of disaster and other issues related to social development. Let's take a quick